So if you're a basketball player trying to get lean and drop some body fat, this is a really overlooked component of your nutrition plan that you really need to pay attention to. So as a basketball player, there are certain situations where you might actually benefit from dropping body fat, getting leaner, because if you're holding on to excess body fat really doesn't do anything for you in terms of performance. Like muscle, if you're heavier but it's muscle, you're at least gonna add strength, power, explosiveness. There's benefit to your performance. With fat, that's not really the case. So if you are a little bit overweight or you have some extra body fat to let go of, it can be beneficial to go into a fat loss phase and drop that body fat while maintaining lean muscle mass. And that's important. That's a topic for a different video, but maintaining lean muscle mass during that fat loss phase, critical. Now, an overlooked component of your fat loss process though is when during the year are you actually going into a fat loss phase? Because we know that to achieve fat loss, you have to be in a calorie deficit. But we also know that to achieve maximum performance, you can't be in a calorie deficit. You need to have calories, you need to have energy to fuel that performance on the court, in your training, in your games. So it's a tough situation because one goal requires a certain nutritional approach and the other goal requires a nutritional approach that is opposite to the other one. So what do you do there? And the solution to that is making sure you time your fat loss phases properly during the year. So when is performance the number one priority? During your season, when you're playing games. Obviously, performance is your number one priority there. This is what you've been training for all year. So you don't really want to time a fat loss phase in the middle of your season because that's going to lead to poorer performance, poor recovery, possibly increased injury risk, and it's not going to be a good look. Now, when I would time your fat loss phase is pretty early in the off season when you don't really have any performance demands, you don't have to play in any games, you don't have to compete for a starting spot in the lineup. You can be okay with potentially sacrificing a little bit of performance in the short term to drop that body fat, but it's going to lead to a positive return in the long run because now you're leaner, you're lighter, you're more explosive, and by the time the next season comes around, you'll actually be fueling properly by the time you actually start playing games. Now, where this can get a little tricky is if you're a high school player because you might have recruiting camps or AAU stuff in the off season, and that might actually be more of an in-season phase for you. So make sure to keep that in mind. And when I say off season, I mean when you don't have any demands for your teams, any games, any practices, anything that you really need to perform well for. So again, make sure you time that fat loss phase in your off season, preferably earlier in your off season, so you give yourself the later off season to ramp calories back up and get you back into a position where you're fueling properly. So when you go back to training camp, when practices start, when games start, you'll be in a position where you're fueling properly and you'll have successfully lost that body fat that you needed to over the course of the off season. So let me know if you have any questions with that, and I will talk to you in the next video.